So I'm Jay, this is Harrison, and we'll be doing a haircut. Harrison, what are you looking to get done with your hair?
Probably just like a low tapered fade on the sides here.
Yep.
Same thing on the back as well.
Okay.
Just make me look good.
100%. So one thing I noticed about Harrison's hair, what I like a lot about it, is that it's very effortless, meaning like it styles its own. Requires less product, and I feel like that is what's really trendy nowadays, is where a haircut can just really do its own thing. Again, the taper I highly suggest it as well, only because of his head anatomy. It suits his head very well. It gives a lot of attention to the flow, which a lot of people like, and people can just look at his hair and be like, wow, that's a nice style that he has going on with the sharp look, which gives it more of a modern taste, right? So one thing that I'm gonna do first is saturate the hair. The reason for it is because I can really see its natural state when it's saturated, and I could see where his hair likes to flow naturally, right? As you can see the shape. It's very even, very nice. And a lot of people, when I get students, they ask, hey Jay, do you start with the top? Do you start with the sides? I say it's very situational, because if you understand your client, right? If his hair's too long, you would want to actually start with the sides first. But in this case, we can actually knock out the top, pre-style it, and then actually start with the taper, right? Because you can actually get the best look once it's pre-styled, and you can really see its natural shape. So that's what I'm gonna do first. I'm gonna start with the top of the head. So since it's saturated already, I'm gonna start with something that's called a profile section, where I'm actually gonna take a centerpiece, and it's gonna be my guide to understand how much length I'm cutting off from left to right. And with this haircut, it's fairly easy. The reason for it is because from looking at Harrison's head, automatically it lays nicely, but I do see a couple of parts of his head where it starts to lift, right? And I'm just gonna target those areas more, so it just looks more natural. Okay. Center profile, it doesn't necessarily have to be strictly in the center, just an area where you can really divide it to panel work, where you can really shift it to left to right, so you can control the outcome of the length. So I'm gonna stand on the side of it, and just with his hair, we're probably just gonna take off just a tiny bit, so it just complements the taper. So as you can see here, probably taking about like 1/4 inch. And then I'm grabbing a piece of the last section that I just cut as my guide for the new length. Again, minimal adjustments, just refinement. Harrison likes to get his hair cut probably every 2 weeks. So with his job, he likes to stay fresh, right? So with clients like that, you can already see the shape itself and just refine anything that it needs to be refined. So now I have 3 panels here, 1, 2, 3. So now I can continue. I'm just gonna saturate a bit more just for control. And then again, using my guide from the center profile, I'm just gonna continue from cutting him in this direction. Ziggy, how's that angle? Is that okay? Cool.
It's really, really good.
Again, bring it up. Again, minimal cuts, right? Just refine it. The reason I'm cutting it like this is because I kind of want him to have that textured look and not just a blunt, flat look on top of his head, right? It's gonna enhance his features with his natural hair. As I work my way to the front, I kind of leave the bangs last. Why? Because that's his fringe area. So we're gonna cut that a bit different, right? So I leave that. And how do you know it's the fringe area? Same with the apex of the head, where the head starts to drop, right? So now that I actually cut the right side of the head, I can actually grab a section from the right side and actually bring it to the left, right? And we're literally gonna do the same thing on the right side to the left, but the only difference is it's gonna be the left side. So as again, You can see my panel work. There's 3 panels or 3 sections you like to call it. When it comes to the top of the hair, I like to work very clean. Why? Because when you work clean, you control the outcome more efficiently. It actually helps you get more an even haircut, which will actually get less mistakes over time, right? So I'm gonna grab the center again, as you can see here. And then work my way to that fringe. When I blow dry, I like to start with the ends first. Why? Because it's actually easier to blow dry from bottom up. I gotta blow dry your hair like this first, so I can see the shape of your head, and then we can get on to styling and whatnot. So we should have something like this, where it's just slick back, so we can really see the shape and where his parts of his head likes to clump up or in a way. What you need to do first actually is to debulk, right? So before you start fading, you need to create a boundary where it's nice and even. So I'm using the number 4, and I'm just creating a base. Again, with the taper, you don't want to go past the occipital bone on a fade with the taper, only because it doesn't complement the client. You always want to bring it under, right? Enhance those natural features that the client has. Anytime where you make a guideline or you create a guideline, you typically want to use the same tool to get rid of that guideline. I'll show you what I mean when we progress in the haircut. So right now I'm just going to make the guideline with the clipper. And this is where a lot of students, they struggle of getting rid of that guideline in my experience, is because they don't understand the open and close technique yet, where in this particular case, you can actually learn it very easy and efficiently. So as you can see there, I just made a guideline that's nice and straight. As you can see with the number 4 and the number 2, I kind of created my boundaries with the guideline and the number 4 and the 2. So you can kind of envision the area that I'm gonna start fading. Right, so I'm setting myself up as an easy fade technique. So next, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open that guard and just go up. And as you can see, I'm putting my finger down. The reason for it is because Harrison's neck actually dips in the center. You can't probably see it in the camera, but I can feel it with the clipper, right? If I place the comb flat, different parts of his head, right? It actually won't sit well. So I'm gonna have to use different techniques and angles to really make everything color match. Harrison, how you doing, bro?
Sure.
Yeah?
So when you do your thing, you know?
Proper. Bro, if you have any questions, bro, just let me know. And as you can see, it's starting to disappear. And what's left is going to be that initial guideline. So as you can tell, when I cut hair, I like to leave the hardest for last. Only because if I try to do the hardest first, I feel like a lot of my students, they kind of push up the fade, right? I kind of want them to see the whole fade and actually take out that initial guideline last, so they know how high to go. This tip is actually very valuable. The reason I say valuable is because this is where I feel like students struggle the most, and is getting rid of that initial guideline. So I'm gonna actually walk through step by step of how to get rid of that guideline. And with getting rid of this guideline, you have to actually understand the clipper and the angle itself first. So what I like to say, you have to understand 90 degrees, 45 degrees, and flat. When I say flat, it's very flush to the head, which looks like this, right? You don't want to start off like this. The reason for it is because you don't want to push up the fade. And how you push up the fade, you have to take off less than rather too much, right? Because if you take off little by little, you can actually adjust it to actually take off the amount of hair that you actually want. So in this case, where you the initial guideline here, I like to start in the corner here, and I'll start with open, right? I'm gonna start with 90 degrees, and what that looks like is literally just like this, where it's literally scratching or raking the hair. And when I see it's not really doing anything, and when it's not being effective, I'll actually tilt it to a 45-degree angle, and it would actually soften up that line more, right? And when I see it softening up, I'll probably just repeat it until it's nice and smooth. And then I'll close up the lever gradually to get rid of that line, right? So it actually requires a lot of control with this method. So this technique is called clip over comb. So you kind of want to be very careful. The reason for it is because you kind of don't want to take off too much. In barbering, remember, you want to take off less than too much, right? So you can actually level out your head now. Perfect. As you can see, the head, right, is very flush and very seamless when it actually blends into the back of the taper, right? So that's how you know I didn't go too high, right? It just complements the head shape very nicely. Again, it's going to enhance once I actually implement the line work, which is actually going to make the haircut pop even more. And remember, the same tool that you use to create the initial guideline is the same tool that you use to get rid of the initial guideline. Okay, so the same thing on the back, what we do, right, is we have to debulk. So before I start fading, I like to create my boundaries. Okay, so I kind of already debulked. This is a pro tip that I want you guys to really pay attention. So when I do a taper, what I like to actually do first is actually do the line work first. The reason why is because I like to create my foundation and my base where I can understand what I'm gonna cut. So what that looks like is I'm gonna grab hairspray and a brush, right? I'm gonna spray a little bit of hairspray on that brush, right? And then I'm gonna brush just the corners down a bit, just to really get those corners. And once I establish that, I can go in with my liner and actually start lining them up. So where do I start lining up, right? Looking at Harrison's hair, when I lift up the hair, I can already see his natural hairline. I'm just literally gonna follow that, okay? A lot of people, they don't know how to make a hook or know how to make a corner. I feel like that's my favorite type of cut, is how everything just pops with line work. So my first advice is always line up with the symmetry of his head. What that means is forehead, meaning like you kind of want to make it all even. So what that looks like is probably like this. I kind of like to line up my trimmers before I place it. So lining it up with his eyebrows according to his forehead. This line looks good to me, so I'll start my initial line right there. Right? Hold the head for balance, stability, and kind of create that initial line. What I like to do secondly is create my vertical line, which is right there. I know it's hard to see on camera, but when you're actually standing right next to the client, you're actually able to see it. So what I'm gonna do now, since I made my first guideline, which is my horizontal line versus my vertical line, all I gotta do now is to connect it. So again, I'm gonna brush it down. Right? How do you identify a client's natural part? Pro tip. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna comb, right, his hair, Harrison's hair all the way, and then I'm just gonna grab it and just split it. And you can actually already see his natural hair flow just by that split. You see that? Right? And again, I like to use a wide tooth comb or my hands, right? Depending on the length or the hair texture of the client. But in this case, you can see that Harrison's hair complements itself. I barely used any product, right? And Harrison loves it because I'm complimenting him all the time, but he doesn't truly understand how nice his hair is. So this is the final look. We gave Harrison more of that natural look, right? That complements his natural features. Again, he doesn't want too much product in his hair, or maybe even no product. And again, what you really notice about his hair off the bat is the wave to it, right? That nice flow, and the taper it just complements it, right, with the line work. Very nice and subtle and seamless. As I turn him, as you can see with the back, right, just suits his head shape very well, right? The head anatomy and everything like that, so. Thank you, brother.
Specs, bro.
Got you, my guy.